You deserve to be loved. And your longing for love and the way it was missed might look now like an addiction or constant comparison. So let's try moving through it. I am encouraged by our conversations is that we are not staying stuck in it. We can, we're, if you're watching, like, I hope you see both of us using both hands. There's a lot of two-handedness in this to be able to acknowledge and move through the good and the bad, the honor and the honesty. Every bit of you is sacred by design. Of all the hurts and ways to endure trauma, what we're going to discuss really has a way of putting people in a position where they want to slam the brakes, just complete stop, pause, freeze, whatever it is, so they don't have to deal with the term, even just the term mother wound. Maybe you've never heard of it. Stay with us. I hope I didn't scare you away, because either way, this is such a rich conversation and a delicate conversation and a necessary conversation.
Yeah, I think there's already probably some feelings popping up just from hearing that. And I think this one, we have some gut reactions to it. And maybe you've had one of like, what? What is that? Or I don't have that. And there are some layers here, which we'll talk some about today. That this is hard to talk about sometimes because we want to protect our parents and our mothers specifically we're talking about today. It can feel like a sense of betrayal to say, no, there's some hurt there.
Yeah.
There's some wounding there. Or maybe you're coming here with a place of saying, oh no, I can talk about there's been a whole lot of hurt, and it's hard to recognize some of the humanness or some of the good that was there too. Anyway, it's a tough one already to dive into.
It was a tough one to prepare for, right?
Is that what we're doing?
This is what we're doing. So can we ease into it with a story maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I promise this will be relevant, right? Okay. So back in July, I was playing tennis and I went to slide for the ball and thank you. And my tennis shoe stopped, but my knee kept going. So you heard this loud pop. But we were on vacation, so you just plug through and you keep hiking and you keep biking and you keep playing tennis because you have to. But then that pop turned into a limp. The limp turns into like throbbing. And then all of a sudden, I'm feeling this throughout my entire leg. Like my quad is really knotted up and the top of my foot hurts and my calf is hurting. I've now learned to drive with my left foot because my right foot hurts too bad to drive with. And then finally, I was like, this is enough. I've got to go see an orthopedist. I get the MRI. I get the X-ray. I meet with the orthopedist who shows me that the source of the pain is the swelling right behind my kneecap and arthritis. So this tiny little area that finally we get to see through all this imaging and time with this doctor has radiated into all sorts of different symptoms and grown well past the area of just my little kneecap. So you know where I'm going with this.
That's a great analogy because we feel those symptoms, they come out in other ways. And sometimes we don't always we feel the symptoms, but not always knowing the source. Or in this case, you did. But how true is that of us when we're talking here about mother wounds? That we might come into therapy or to coaching saying, here are all these symptoms I'm having. Here are all these ways that this pain is coming out sideways, and hopefully with a good coach or therapist, we can go more to the sources of where is some of that hurt, where is some of that pain coming from, and some deeper healing that is waiting for us there.
But nobody walks into therapy saying, so I've got this mother wound, right? They don't like me.
Maybe after listening to this podcast, they will.
Maybe yes. No. Hey, that's one small goal, yes. But like I didn't walk into my orthopedist with, I've got arthritis and edema in my right kneecap. I had pain. I was limping. All these things. So, could you define mother wound for us?
I think it will come out in different ways. But when I was thinking about it, of where was your mom not who you needed her to be as a kid? Whether that is from being emotionally checked out, even towards neglective, whether that's from being overbearing and strict, more authoritarian, all the way to abusive. But where were there some ways where your mom was not who you needed her to be?
Mm. Okay, if you could see both of our faces right now, because we're
Right.
both. That's hard, because your mom's your mom,
Yeah. Yeah.
but everyone's mom is a human being. So there are, and I'm not saying that to be trite, but
Mm.
because she's a human being, we as human beings are both good, and there's brokenness to us as well. So, not connecting as a little girl can turn into difficulty connecting as a woman. That's what makes this so important.
Hmm. Adam Young says something like that we can acknowledge the good in our moms and just put that in a box on a shelf while we are examining the ways that we've been wounded. And Jay Stringer says a similar way of looking at our story, and here we're talking about looking at our moms with honor and with honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those. And those don't feel like they go together because to say, okay, let me honor the humanness in my mom, but also let me be honest about the ways that I was hurt or the ways she wasn't or couldn't be what I needed. Those won't feel like they go together, but don't they?
No.
But don't they?
I like that you acknowledge that they don't feel like they go together,
Mm-mm.
but it just feels like a reflex. I know even for myself that I'm eager to protect my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's why people do want to slam the brakes, because honor and honesty don't feel like good partners,
Mm-hmm.
but they are necessary partners in this. Um, but looking out for the little girl that you were is important to
Mm-hmm.
healing into the woman that you are and are meant to be. So let's give that little girl some relief, some answers, because she deserves it. So, can we explore some of the ways that a mother wound can show up in our lives, like the symptoms, right? I didn't walk into my orthopedist, like I said, with the edema, but I limped in
Yeah.
with a lot of pain
Right,
and
right.
some other symptoms. So, what are ways that a mother wound can radiate
Mm.
into our lives?
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, we could throw around some fancy words like enmeshment, differentiation, but really, we're talking about hurts. We're talking about pain that comes out in other ways. So for someone that might look like not being your full self, because you don't want to be threatening to others, you don't want to be that overbearing presence. Having a high tolerance for people treating you poorly, just taking that in, um, or 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 emotional caretaking of others, taking on everyone else's needs and making sure they're good so that I'm good. Feeling competitive with other women, and maybe a sense of being threatened there too. Self sabotage. If I have something good for a little while, then if I self sabotage, I'm in control. I have the power that to when it ends. No one else can take that away from me, but I'm the one doing it. Being overly rigid or dominating with others, with yourself, and even coming as conditions more like eating disorders or depression or addiction.
Mm. So, just the idea of mother wound in and of itself is heavy,
Mm.
but the list that you just shared is equally heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that anybody who's listening, if maybe you never considered a mother wound before, but you can identify or say, oh, crap, I think that's me. Or maybe that's why I have this pattern showing up in my life. Or the self sabotage, all of it, if it connects, I hope you continue to listen, because there's so much more we can say on this. This is just a tiny little conversation. Um, but I hope and I pray that you allow it to be a way that you can start the conversation with yourself and with honor and honesty also
Mm.
as you think back about your mom. I know that for myself, also like to make excuses. She did the best she could. She didn't mean to do that. She didn't know any better.
Mm.
Why do we do that?
Yeah. I think that that unit, we want it to be good.
Oh.
We do. And if there's a sense of, well, if my parents were good, then I'm gonna be okay, then I can my world is safer, more predictable. And there may be some truth to it as well, that she did do the best she could. And we can say that and still with that honor and honesty, right? And still be able to acknowledge that there was some hurt
Mm.
there.
It turns into sometimes looking for what you didn't get. Because like you said, we want for and we long for that union, that bond with our mom. So why do your relationships dissolve? Why do people treat you like a dumping ground? You deserve to be loved. You deserve to be loved. And your longing for love and the way it was missed might look now like an addiction or constant comparison. So let's try moving through it. I am encouraged by our conversations is that we are not staying stuck in it. We
Mm.
can, we're, if you're watching, like, I hope you see both of us using both hands. There's
Yeah.
a lot of two-handedness in this to be able to acknowledge and move through the good and the bad, the honor and the honesty. Um, so use both hands
Mm.
with awareness as you move through this, because naming a mother wound is hard. I want to protect my mom, and I'm also a mom. So flipping the attention to me, all of a sudden gives me, but I can't even go. I can't go down that road just yet. So let's just stick to how to honor your mom with honesty in this process.
And yourself too. That by those words, honor and honesty, they share a root
Mhm.
there. That again, they don't feel like they go together, but to by being honest about some of these wounds, we can honor ourselves some more too,
Mhm.
and saying, yeah, these are some ways that I've been hurt, and that's being honest, but that's also bringing to light some things that are hard. I want to encourage people too that these can be hard to recognize. Maybe there's some real new stuff, or maybe you've been down this road for a while. It can be hard to recognize some of the ways that our pain comes out sideways. So that's right there, that's hard work. And on top of that, it can be hard to acknowledge it and be able to say, yes, there is pain there with some more honesty. And if you're the type of person who says, great, what's next? How do I fix it?
Yeah. Yeah.
To start here by recognizing it and acknowledging it, that there is some amount of healing that can come even just from that.
Mhm.
But even just that can
Mhm.
be some hard work.
So you reference Adam and putting the goodness of your mom on the shelf for a little bit
Mm.
while you consider the wounding for a little bit. The not being stuck is then taking that goodness back off the shelf,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so let's talk about healing. Let's talk about not being stuck, because identifying a mother wound is not to say my mom is bad. Identifying a mother wound is to name the wounding and then move through it towards healing. And that's the regeneration. That's the
Mm.
reformation. That's the transformation. Henry Nouwen says, when our wounds cease to be a source of shame and become a source of healing, we become wounded healers. Hold on. it's I'm sorry. I mean, I wrote it down for a reason, but it is just hitting me.
Mm.
So is there a better kind of healer than a wounded healer? Because the school of pain and shame is powerful, but to be a wounded healer means you move with a different kind of awareness, a different kind of compassion and empathy and love and honor
and honesty. You've done the work to name the wound. You're aware of, oh gosh, it's
Mm,
it's hard, but this leads to exactly what I was just going to say, is that grief and anger are necessary, and uncomfortable, but they're okay. There's a place for them here
yeah,
in this process.
yeah. Mm. As you're talking, I'm thinking about how much we have this literal picture of Christ as our wounded healer
Mm.
who fell a couple times on the way, who asked for who needed help to carry
Hmm.
uh, a cross that was heavy, that was
Mhm.
hard, that we see him and we can look to him through this too. If this is hard, to look at our pain, to look at our humanness, our mom's humanness. Remember too, we have Christ to look at as our wounded healer in his humanness.
Mm. That's good. As we name the wounds, and I feel like shame is a real bully
Mm,
in this, to start saying things like, "Oh, you were complicit, though," or um, "You keep letting it happen. You didn't find your voice," or whatever it is. How do we bully the bully out? Is that a fair question?
mm. I think bringing back to that you were a kid, remembering who she was, who she is still. That now maybe you're listening to this as an adult or certainly older. That you can look back and see some things, but that you were a kid.
Mm.
And think about how you treat kids now when they're in pain. You you may get small yourself and sit
Mm.
next to them.
Mm.
You may in kind of a softer voice say, "It's okay, I'm here." You might give them some time to let those feelings come out, because they will, and they'll come back
Mhm.
to themselves too,
Mm.
but leave some room for it. So bring that kind of compassion to yourself,
Mhm.
being a little kid.
We have mentioned on here a couple of times the concept of rupture and repair. And if the rupture is the mother wound, the repair is still necessary. And so what a great opportunity as a grown woman to love on the little girl that you were, and with your wounded healer, with Jesus.
Mm.
Sit down and consider how to repair. Instead of a spiritual practice, maybe we could just end with a prayer for our listeners.
Yeah,
And before we get to the prayer, there's so much more we could say on this.
always.
There's so many layers. There's so many opportunities for different tangents and ways to look at this and how to move through this. And so the conversations will keep coming. Um, we're here and we're ready for them. Um, so if anyone has another question or another need, to please send that in, because we would love to walk with you through that. I just pray for every woman listening. God, would you speak being into her? Holy Spirit, open her heart to ways that she's been wounded, and be near her as she grieves, as she gets angry, and as she learns to forgive. God, you see the little girl, now woman, listening. Arm her with honor and honesty to hear your words. You are precious. You are lovely. I see you. Lord, give us hope and eyes to see the new thing you're doing. Where there's a void and this precious woman listening, fill her up. From Isaiah 49, can a mother forget the baby who is nursing at her breast? Can she stop showing her tender love to the child who was born to her? She might forget her child. She might. But I will not forget you. I have written your beautiful name on the palms of my hands. I am your wounded healer.